Pathfinder 2nd Edition does not have as strong niche protection as I initially thought it did. But this leads us to the question of what is niche protection, how strong is it in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and how strong should it be generally in TTRPGs? Hey everyone, Utkarsh from Spirit Bell Games here. Today we are talking about mechanical niches or niches. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, all three pronunciations are valid, so I'm going to stick with my preferred one of niche. What is niche protection in a role-playing game? Generally speaking, and specifically also for this video, when people talk about niche protection, they're talking about mechanical specialties that certain classes have that others do not. Now that sounds very generic because I'm trying to cover a lot of role-playing games, but let's focus in on the trifecta of wizard, cleric, fighter, for example. According to niche protection, fighter gets strong damage, wizard gets utility, and cleric gets healing in a generic sense. And if the game is class-based, or even in some non-class-based games which have point buy, there are mechanisms in place to prevent one character from stepping into other people's niches. And what's interesting here that we'll soon discover is that there's a difference between preventing a character from stepping into one or two niche versus preventing a character from stepping into all niches. This is the everything character with strong defense, strong offense, good utility, some healing, and decent damage output. Now, initially when I came to Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I looked at the way it does multi-classing and thought to myself, well, this is a game with strong niche protection. In something like D&D 5th Edition, multi-classing allows a character to dip into different characters' levels and get basically everything important, at least, that other class would get with those early levels. And since classes tend to be front-loaded with features because you want the most defining features up early, dipping only a few levels into another class is enough to get a lot of their specialties up and running. Now that's not to say that 5e comes with no cost. 5e comes with a very big opportunity cost of losing out on the levels of the class you were picking. But if you have done some power analysis of your class and realize that further levels give diminishing returns, then yes, you may be tempted to pick into another class's early levels and step into their niche. Whereas the way Pathfinder 2nd Edition does it with archetypes allow you to slot in pieces of other niches outside of your core class by replacing your class feats, or in the case of free archetype variant, which is so common, by replacing nothing. It's just an add-on. So in the first case, without free archetype, there is an opportunity cost. In the second case, there is no opportunity cost for archetyping. But what you get is a more watered down version of what the original class gets. The monk is the classic example post-remaster, where pre-remaster, where the monk themselves get a flurry of blows that lets them every turn make 2 unarmed strikes with 1 action, whereas anyone archetyping into monk can pick up at later levels the ability to flurry of blows, which then goes into a d4 round cooldown after you use it 1 time. Now the differences that I've specified, I'm stating them in absolute terms, that 5e has only opportunity cost, whereas Pathfinder 2e relies more on gating the niches behind archetypes. But you can make an argument that they're closer than I am making them out to be. What we are seeing here, in general terms, these things are on a spectrum. They're somewhat closer than the hard categories I'm putting them in for the sake of making a point. But again, generally what we see is that 5th edition D&D does not prevent you from accessing the power of other classes. It just imposes an opportunity cost. Whereas Pathfinder 2nd Edition introduces these soft gates by watering down the power of what you get when you go outside of the niche of your class. But you can also imagine a different game that puts hard gates in. I'm going to take an example from video games and refer to Dragon Age Inquisition, which has 3 core classes. And as you're adventuring in your party of 4, making it quite likely that you have at least one of each class, you will come across obstacles that only a member of one of the 3 classes can overcome. if you come across a lock that needs to be picked, you cannot have the mage or warrior even attempt to pick that lock. If you come across an arcane barrier of some kind, only a mage can bring that down. So we can divide up niche protection into these three. Well, maybe there's a fourth category as well, which says no niche protection. In an even less niche protected system than 5e, we can imagine a classless system that not only does not have specific class-based paths, niches, but also does not require you to develop any particular skill to reach its higher echelons. Instead, whatever you want, you can just grab whenever you get the opportunity to grab it. And in this type of game system, there would be no niche protection at all. With this spectrum in mind, let's hone in on the specific ways that Pathfinder 2nd Edition allows you to gain access to other niches. Pathfinder actually has a great video that tackles this topic from a different perspective. His video called Redefining Fundamentals of Power, I believe, where he talks about reliability, efficiency, versatility, potency, and sustainability as 5 pillars of the game design and how the game assigns these as different niches. I highly recommend you check out that video to see how those design concepts are applied. I'm going to be talking in more game mechanical, concrete terms for things like damage, healing, area effect, and so on. So let's start with damage. Is damage a protected niche? Well, definitely not in a hard niche protection way, because everyone has access to at least simple weapons that they are trained with that they can use. Different classes may be really bad in terms of their accuracy, or they may have really rough action efficiency with their damage, or they may lack the numbers, the sheer damage numbers. But just damage itself is not a protected niche. Instead, there are various different aspects of damage that get broken down, which we will come to. But before we get to different aspects of damage, let's talk about healing, because this is something that I found interesting, where other games tend to have strong niche protection for healing. Pathfinder 2e says that if you are trained in medicine, you can pick up the battle medicine feat, and then now you have access to in-combat healing. Or you can pick up the Blessed Healer archetype with no requirements to that archetype. That gives you access to the Lay on Hand spell, which is a focus spell that has the Manipulate trait. So I believe even barbarians can pick it up and use it. This puts healing in a really special tier where any class can get access to it, but it just does require that little bit of investment to get access to it. So is it a protected niche? Well, it's very weakly protected. In fact, we can take what's happening with medicine and extrapolate that to any skill, really. You may be bad at thievery if you have low dex, but if you keep putting investment points in it, you can still do it. You can still make the attempts if you keep increasing your skill proficiency with it. You're never locked out as long as you're at least trained. But this is not to say that there aren't healing specialists in the game, right? Because a cleric with a healing divine font, gets a massive amount of heal to put out there, which can turn the tide of a battle completely. So this is an example of one of the softer niches that Pathfinder 2nd Edition has, where the niche is gated by the amount of heal, the sheer numbers, being hard gated by whether you can or cannot do it. All right, next, let's talk about damage types. In discussions of the difference between martials and casters, it frequently comes up that casters have the advantage of having access to energy damage types, which seems to be their niche. But can martials get access to energy damage types? Well, yes. There are energy runes if you wanted to specialize in one energy damage type. There are bombs if you just wanted to bring the right energy damage type out to exploit a weakness. There are also elemental arrows that ranged weapon users can use. And for melee strikers, there is the lovely weapon siphon, which allows you to put in alchemical bombs and infuse your weapon with energy damage types. So anyone can access them, but you may have noticed that for martials, the more versatility they want in damage types, the more they have to invest monetarily and, in many cases, with additional actions required to activate those damage types. The versatility in damage types is a softly protected niche that casters, especially primal and arcane casters, can get access to more easily, whereas other characters need some other amount of investment, whether it is through archetyping to pick up cantrips or by spending money for items and actions to use those items. Okay, what about single target damage? That seems to be the martial's niche, yes. And mostly speaking, that is true. Most of the martials, fighters, rogues, swashbucklers, barbarians, they really specialize in dealing single target damage with strikes, with good action efficiency, and really good numbers when they hit. But also, even at early levels, primal and arcane casters gain access to Thunderstrike, and occult and divine casters get access by level 3 to spiritual armament. So here we see that yes, efficient or powerful single target damage is a softly protected martial niche, and casters can get access to it by expending resources, which is spell slots. All right, the next thing is area damage, and Pathfinder does tend to value area damage quite a lot. Some might say maybe a little too much, but that's not a discussion for this video. Area damage can be broken down into multi-targeting, something like swipe or double shot that martials get, versus true area damage that triggers area weakness or weakness to area damage, which is mostly the remit of casters, things like fireball. Now we are coming to one of the more protected niches, because it is possible for martial characters to get access to area damage, true area damage, but it's not easy. Often these are specific class paths, like a dragon barbarian with Dragon's Breath, or the monk that picks up the Ki Blast focus spells, and it seems to be on purpose that these options are not present within the class design of high accuracy characters like the fighter and the gunslinger. Now again, the martials can pick up bombs, which often triggers the same weaknesses that area damage does, but not always. And the martials can also dip into caster archetypes to pick up some area damage, but the ceiling of the damage won't be as good as max rank spell slots or Ki Blast, Dragon's Breath, or the Inventor's Explode. So now we are starting to see that the niches are getting more and more protected. If we keep following this pattern, when we get to things like flight, invisibility, teleportation, then we start getting into much more strongly protected niches, but ones that all characters could still get access to if they get the right items. But these items now tend to be more expensive than just buying elemental ammunition. Having talked about all of these mechanical pieces, if we zoom out, we see that Pathfinder 2nd Edition tends to have soft gates, and it has the softest gates for things that are very necessary for every combat encounter, but the gates get more concrete as we get into more of the optional nice-to-haves instead of the must-haves of damage and healing. Nevertheless, it usually doesn't have very hard gates, and I think I know the reason why. It's because Pathfinder 2e has so many classes. It has approaching 30 classes now, with Impossible Magic coming out soon. If you have that many options for characters to choose, you cannot design any encounters with hard gates in mind, because hard gates might block out the access to that part of the encounter or that part of the adventure to way too many character possibilities. The reason Dragon Age Inquisition can afford to have hard gates is because they have 3 core classes and a whole bunch of subclasses branching off of each of those. And so in an adventure, you can expect to have all of those 3 niches covered. Whereas in Pathfinder, you cannot expect that a party will have a caster. You cannot expect that a party will have a high accuracy martial. You cannot count on any one skill to necessarily be present and be invested in by any of the party members. And so you have to design the game with soft niche protection. This brings us to the topic of, is niche protection even good? We don't want characters to be logged out of different aspects of gameplay. So should Pathfinder have stronger niche protection? Should any RPG? Well, to dive into this question, we have to discuss player psychology a bit, and it's separate from the concrete discussion of Pathfinder 2nd Edition as a system. So this section of the video will be exclusive to the Patreon extended edition of the video. If you want to catch it, see the full video at patreon.com/spiritbellgames. For now, this is me signing off, wishing you all engaging games.